Very good. Well, you've gathered this is Hugh Birkin. Now, a word flashed across your conversation, Jayne-Anne, which immediately caught my attention, because it was the word purpose. You said purpose is on everybody's agenda. And, do you know, I'm having a bit of a crisis over purpose at the moment. It's a sort of crisis of faith. Do I really believe in it? It's partly actually because I sat in a very earnest business in the community meeting last night, where we talked very earnestly about purpose-driven brands and how important they were to society and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going to myself, well, hang on a minute. If we'd had this conversation 10 years ago in marketing, we might have been talking about vision or mission or... So come on, does purpose really matter? And if so, how does it matter to Virgin or Virgin Money?
So to the extent that you think we've been successful at all, the only reason that we've been successful at all is because of our purpose. And so for me, it's absolutely fundamental to the business success and the culture that we've created in the business. And it actually all came from a marketing position. So when those of us came back from RBS to Virgin back in 2007, Virgin Money at that point had 3 products, a credit card, an insurance product and a savings and investment product. And the marketing approach then was to sell those products, but there was nothing other than the Virgin brand that connected them with any sort of meaning. And so having come back from RBS, a few of us, including Paul, as it turns out, sat down together in my conservatory in Edinburgh and said, and funny enough, just Johnny Hornby was there as well, and said, what is it that we're trying to do having come from RBS back to Virgin? And we concluded that we were fed up of just driving for targets. We were fed up of all of the issues of banking. And that actually, if we were going to take this big risk, and I remember at the time my mother being horrified that I moved from what she called a big blue chip company to this tiny little thing called Virgin Money. But we'd all made this very risky decision. And we concluded that in the end, our objective was not the win-lose culture that we'd experienced in big banking, but to make everyone better off. And to start with, we thought it was a marketing campaign. And as we experienced it and expressed it more and more, we realised that actually it was our corporate ambition. We wanted to create a business and a bank that could make everyone better off. And what we mean by that, and it's really simple actually, is we do want to make some money for our shareholders, but we want to have customers that have got good products, well priced with good service. We want our colleagues to realise their own dreams, as it were. We want to do something a bit good in our communities. And so we set this up as our common purpose, as our sort of small purpose at that point. And I'd go out and try and raise money for Virgin Money in 2007, and PE firms would say, don't talk to me about making everyone better off. I want you to make me better off, and it would be a disaster. Anyway, post-crisis, we bought Northern Rock, and we acquired with Northern Rock, of course, 3,000 people. And the one thing that was really important to me was to think, how do we get the hearts and minds of these people really behind us? And I've never acquired a business before, and I was worried that a bank that had a brand like Northern Rock, that people in the North East have been very proud of, how do you take them over and take people with you? And we did that, and on the first day of the acquisition, I personally spent literally all day seeing hundreds and thousands of the people. I did, I think, 7 presentations of an hour, and we talked about making everyone better off. And you could see the engagement. Do you really mean that? What can I do to make people better off? And the accidentally brilliant thing about it is that in our business, all of our staff, everyone better off, we call EBO, everyone's better off. And everyone has
better than ASBO for sure.
And everyone has their own EBO. And what it means is that if you can make a decision, wherever you are in the organisation, if you're in a branch or running marketing or in finance, and you're faced with a business decision, we always say to people, and we actually put it on, how organisations have a sort of tick box, is it financially sensible, does it meet regulatory requirements, and we say, is it EBO? And what we mean is, have you thought about this decision in terms of all stakeholders, not just the one stakeholder that might be the predominant one? And it's created a business of really engaged people that feel they're making a difference in the world. And so it was, as I say, it came to us like lots of things by accident. It's been super powerful, and it's the thing that people are most proud of.
I think the short answer to your question is that purpose in this case is not just some sort of management jargon, but actually shorthand for something more important.
For our culture, yeah.
Okay, next question.
Hi, Lindsay Clay from ThinkBox. It seems like you're really happy at Virgin Money. It seems like perfect environment for you. But what job would you covet? So if that job ceased to exist tomorrow and you were able to be CEO of anything, what have you got your eye on? What would you really like to do?
I'd like to run RBS. And the reason,
Oh, hey, you heard it here first, guys.
well, I mean, the sort of, in a sense, a sort of obvious answer to your question, I guess, because I still, it's 10 years since we left RBS, and I still feel heartbroken about the way that it all ended.
It's unfinished business for you.
I think so, yeah. And yeah, we can make a difference there.
Yeah, well, again, the 10 years...
Oh, Paul, did I really say that?
Again, your colleagues may not want to go back. Back to Hugh's diary again, 10 years' time, Chief Executive of RBS. Next question.
Hi there, I'm Amy from Zopa, which is a fintech innovator and CMO. One of the things that we're predicting for the future is that customers don't want to have a relationship with a single entity for all of their financial needs, and that the world might look a bit more differentiated with people going to different brands for different types of products that really provide best-in-class service. Do you think that's the future that you see, or do you envisage something different?
Well, I can tell you what we're seeing at the moment, I guess, which is that there is a distinction between the Virgin brand and other financial services brands because Virgin has a personality. I mean, I don't just mean Richard Branson, but of course he's created an awful lot of the personality that the Virgin brand has. And as a consequence of that, people do tend to have a much more rich relationship with us. So, for example, it always surprises me that our customers will send people in branches or in call centres flowers and say, thanks ever so much for helping us out, if you know what I mean. And we created a new sort of branch. We call it a Virgin Money Lounge. We have 7 lounges at the moment, and in creating a lounge, what we've done is we've found nice spaces around 7 cities in the UK and given them over to our customers. You have to be a customer in order to go to a lounge, and you can have a coffee there, read the paper there, take your kids there, whatever it happens to be, and we'll never talk to you about financial services. If you want to talk about financial services, we'll send you to the branch, which is nearby, but not necessarily in the same place. In a couple of locations it is. When we first started this lounge thing, the reason that we did it was that we had some spare space in Edinburgh that we couldn't use for our offices, so we thought we'd give it to customers. And after customers had got over this sort of, there must be a catch, I want to be really rational, and realised there wasn't a catch, within 3 or 4 months, we noticed that sales in the local branch had gone up by 300%. And when we asked customers why that was, they said, well, actually, we quite like coming to the branch, we quite like being able to talk to the staff, though, like being able to bring our friends. And the word of mouth marketing and the relationship marketing got more and more. And, it's funny, we have a grand piano in these lounges. Everyone has a grand piano. It was initially an affectation of mine, and they've just been multiplied out. And people come and bring their kids for music lessons, right, and play the piano. And we have people in every location, I think, don't we, that turn up and play the piano to the other customers.
Was this your idea?
As it turns out, it was, but there are.
I thought it might have been on the grounds that nobody else would have been quite freewheeling enough to do it.
Well, and the thing that's interesting about it is that the taxi drivers talk about it. People talk about it at dinner parties. We hold charity events there, and it creates. We have about 60,000 people a month that come into these lounges, and they become our ambassadors, if you like. Now, for us, that ability to use our customers to market our difference is huge, and it's built on personal relationships. Do they need to have a personal relationship to have a savings account with us? No. So I think there's a sort of transactional financial services relationship and a personal one. I think both are important, but I do believe that the transactional relationship's richer if you can create a sort of personal human relationship alongside it.
That's a pure marketing initiative, though you maybe didn't call it that.
Well, yes. I mean, it didn't start that way. I mean, we have definitely found it we've just opened a new lounge in Sheffield, and again, because of the accident of the building that we acquired, it's got a really long, narrow basement, and we've put a bowling alley in it, and so we're now able to market our Virgin Money business in Sheffield from a bowling perspective. And you have fun with that, don't you? In terms of how we can locally market people, to people wanting to come to our bowling alley.
Just to be entirely clear, do you only do this when you get a spare bowling alley, or are you going to make it an absolute policy to go and seek space and do it and spread it throughout the UK? No,
we're definitely seeking space and spreading it throughout the UK. We sought the Sheffield
started by
space.
chance, but no more.
So the locations are now slightly chance-y, if you see what I mean. So we have one in London at the Haymarket. Do come in and see us there if you like. I definitely, one of the things I'm blessed with, right?
Do you have to show a banking number or something to get in?
You have to be a Virgin Money customer to come
Yes.
in. So,
But you have to prove it, presumably.
Yeah, you have to have a card. You have a
Yeah.
lounge membership card. But one of the things I'm super blessed with is that I have a number of barking ideas, most of which don't see the light of day, but I have wonderful people, one of whom is called Caroline. She's responsible for making lounges work. And I remember once saying to her, can we put an aeroplane in the Virgin Money Lounge? And everybody goes, don't be so ridiculous. Anyway, next time I turn up in the basement, it's all decked out as an aeroplane fuselage, and it's brilliant. So having brilliant people that make the crazy things happen is definitely something that's been great for us. So I wanted to say something, I think.
Please, yes.
I mean, Jayne-Anne, we've worked together for almost 7 years, and there are two observations about what you've said tonight that I think builds on what you've been saying about people, be it colleagues, customers, or even your boss. Your ability to connect with the people around you and the importance of those people is clearly very significant. And so I wondered whether you had any tips for us about spotting good people, because you've clearly found some great people and put them around you throughout your whole career.
Yeah, I've also found some really bad ones. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely...
Richard Branson, in my experience, one of his many skills is spotting good people and then giving them quite a lot of control to get on with it.
I mean, complete control. He does.
Yes.
He's absolutely brilliant at that. There's no doubt about it.
And how good are you
Sorry?
at spotting such people?
Not very. I mean, and the Virgin Group would say that. I would say it's about 50-50. So in terms of the people that we're... I mean,
That's a high... Most people would say that was a high batting average.
Do you think? Well, would be
Yeah.
good. So, I mean, of the people that I recruited over many years, 50% have been absolutely brilliant and 50% of them aren't with us anymore. And the lesson that I've learnt along the way, and we definitely didn't get this right, is that when they're not right, lose them straight away.
Do you therefore not find it too onerous sacking people if they've deserved it?
I absolutely prefer for them to work out. But
Sure, who wouldn't? That's the easy thing. But if not, you're not ruthless. You're not nasty. But if it has to be done, you do it.
Yeah, but never soon enough. I always let it fester too long and then regret it. But in the end, I always get there. Yeah.
And what is, don't worry, I'm past the age of wanting to have a full-time job, but if I worked for you, what would I have to do to be one of the 50% that stays? And what would you identify as one of the 50%ers not going to stay at all? Sorry, that's a convoluted way of saying, what are the characteristics you look for and what are the failings that you cannot accept?
I think that the truth of the matter, it's quite... I haven't had to articulate this properly before, although I've thought it. It isn't a job, it's a vocation. And, it comes back to the purpose point in a sense that, we, I think, at Virgin Money believe that we have been given an absolutely brilliant opportunity to create, a bank in the current political climate, in the current social climate is an interesting thing to have, if you know what I mean, or to be responsible for. And I think I certainly feel a sense of responsibility and duty to the customers we have, to the staff who rely on us. I mean, I had a colleague who's retired recently, actually, and we'd have sort of these big parties, and he'd say, stand at the door with me, this is Roland, stand at the door with me, look how many people's lives you affect. And a lot of people just don't think like that. And so, and then I actually feel as if we have responsibility actually to broader stakeholders too, not least the politicians. We bought Northern Rock from the UK government and we want to make a big success of it. Now, sometimes people join us from big banks and do think that coming to Virgin Money as a smaller business will be a sort of easier job, and it's neither of those things. And that can be a bit complicated along the way.
I recently asked Sir Martin Sorrell would he ever retire, and I'm telling the story because I know you're a football fan now, regrettably Manchester United, but never mind, you can't accounting for taste. Sorrell's quoted Bill Shankly, football is not a matter of life and death, it's far more important than that. And then he paused and said, for me, WPP is more important than that, which I think meant he's never, ever going to retire till he's carried out of the place. Will you ever retire?
Never. No.
I thought not.
Well, no, because you see, I don't get this thing. So one of the most brilliant lessons that I ever had was that while I was at Norwich Union, feeling bored while whatever that crisis was going on, Norwich Union paid for me to do an MBA. And I had this completely wacky MBA professor. And the main thing that I remember him saying to me was, Jayne-Anne, the trouble is people are one thing at home and a different thing at work. If only you can just be yourself wherever you are, you'll be much, much more successful, right? And that's definitely served me well for many years. I just am what I am. I can't be bothered to change.
I've never heard anybody getting quite as much out of an MBA program as that before.
I agree. I completely agree, actually.
Is there anybody else? Yes, microphone, please, to the second row.
Sorry, Richard Fogg, CC Group PR. Following the rules. Jayne-Anne, that was fascinating. Thank you very much indeed. But if I may, I have a question for Paul. Paul, as a marketer, what's it like to work for a CEO that clearly gets marketing?
No, that's a terribly, terribly good question. You're definitely allowed to put it, as you just had.
To be honest, actually, it makes your job really easy. Because I've thought about it a lot actually over the years, and I mean, for a start, you have someone that's running the business that believes in marketing. So, and I think I've worked with Virgin for, as Jayne-Anne says, nearly 20 years. So I've not actually had the experience of being somewhere where you've actually had to argue really hard for your case about investing in marketing. Actually, it's always been a given. You've got someone running the business who has some great ideas, and so you kind of get some support to make those happen, make your own happen. So I think it's a large part of our success. I think it makes your job much easier. It's definitely made my job easier. Because
although Paul is not a marketer either. So Paul joined us from Arthur Andersen as a business analyst.
I actually got offered a secondment to work in marketing, and I turned it down. And Jenna said, I really think you should do it. It would really help us out. So I kind of reluctantly did it 18 years ago and never went back.
Now you've got the microphone. I will ask you the obvious question. Do you think you have what it takes to succeed her?
You should probably ask Jayne-Anne that. I think...
I'm not going to retire, don't forget.
Yeah,
this is true.
I think I agree with, there's a point made earlier, which is... I think to be a really good CEO, you need to be really rounded. And so I think that, the question you have to ask yourself is, do you have a depth of skill in all those areas? So you're good with people, you're good with strategy, you're good with customers, you're good with, marketing. So do I have the capability? I don't know. I'll pass on that one.
Does he?
Yes.
If you should retire.
He's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant.
Good.
And the reason that Paul is brilliant is, I reckon, to the bossy bit, right? We've worked together for 20 years. I don't think we've ever fallen out. And she's quite unusual. I have fallen out with quite a lot of people. But Paul has been fantastic, continues to be absolutely fantastic and gets the Virgin brand. And don't forget, we haven't really talked about that. We've both had the benefit of working with one of the most famous brands in the country. And that's been a privilege for all those years, hasn't it?